elections. This policy was conceived to ensure that the 2023 elections do not hold at all, leading to an interim national government to be led by a retired army general. Just by the logo of the Punch, you find Makinde receives Tinubu, Wike dismisses peace move with Atiku. To the major story, better days aren't coming soon. Despair, disappointment after Major General Buhari retired. Address. Riders says President legalizes 1,500 naira. Clash with Supreme Court likely. Governors states dare Buhari order citizens to spend all notes. Naira scarcity worsens at banks, ATMs. Nigerians buy naira with naira. Still on the Punch, police hand over illegal arms, ammunition to NSA. Nigeria's oil input rises by 31 million barrels. By 31 million barrels, I beg your pardon. This is coming from OPEC. Lagos soldier killed by policeman buried. That's just in the red corner. And finally, economic crisis. Man says job losses likely. And that's all that we can take from the Punch.
All right, now to the Guardian newspaper this morning. Quite a number of headlines there. And this says, voices trail Buhari's broadcast on return of old 200 naira notes. And here also says, human rights community poll tips Tinubu to win presidential election. Naira swap, don't postpone elections, bow to pressure. CSOs warn INEC. General elections, 3,980 arms, 2,358 ammunition mopped up, 404,106 personnel for deployment. Also, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, they says 2023 elections are ruling parties frustrate opposition campaigns and state activities. And more of the headlines here also says police probe death of lady in Abuja hotel poll. All right, before we lift the paper, EFCC rearranges it from the Guardian newspaper this morning.
And our first story right here says, this one says, don't design achieving its aim. El-Rufai confronts Buhari, says old naira notes remain legal tender in Kaduna. House deposit old notes. US returns $1 million stolen by ex. Governor Alamesea. Naira redesign, Nigerians lament as banks, motorists, others reject old notes. That come out of Buhari's circle, El-Rufai on an interview right there. Still on the Premium Times, El-Rufai confronts Buhari, says old naira notes, Buhari to release Nnamdi Kanu. And I'll take two more stories when we move to another paper. Naira redesign, Emefiele urges compliance with Buhari's directive. Naira scarcity, Buhari has now made all of us poor. Kwakwanso.
All right, now to the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see some of the headlines. This says Naira policy gets saboteurs arrested, tried. The headline says 57.3 English math as NECO releases 2022 result. Post federal government goes after Simon Ekpa. All right, more of the headlines. Says here right on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, compel APC leaders to release hoarded Naira notes, PDP urges Buhari. And we have Naira redesign, APC must take responsibility for its policy failures. That's what Atiku is saying this morning. G5 too late to reconcile with PDP leadership, and that is coming from Wike. Federal government must end suffering of Nigerians. Falana is issuing that particular instructions. And of course, this says over 5 billion naira, 7 banks branches lost to attacks. That is coming from ASSBIFI. And currency swap, federal government has disregard for Supreme Court order. All right, and let's take 2 more. This says murder of soldier, army denies attack and police. SS2 student runs in Ondo State. Quite sad one there. And that's about it from the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
And to the Daily Post, 2023, can obedient movement determine FCT Senate race? Naira redesign against Tinubu. They are planning military rule. This is El-Rufai. Your deadline illegal. El-Rufai dares Buhari over old Naira notes. 2023 election, Wike has officially joined APC, working for Tinubu PDP campaign council. Old Naira notes still remain legal tender in Jigawa. Governor Badaru dares Buhari. 2023 presidency, Buhari wants APC to lose Ganduje. Naira crisis, banks lose 5 billion naira to protesters. Naira scarcity again, CBN 15 banks working on president's directive. Emefiele, 2023, it's over. Wike insists G5 governors will never sit down with Atiku. NECO releases 2022 SSC external results. Presidential election, Tinubu meets Wike in Rivers. Buhari signs Defense Research Bill, 3 orders into law and 1 more. And we move to another paper. Nigeria's inflation hits 21.82%.
All right, so this day newspaper this morning is still talking about NECO releases 2022 SSC external result. Virtually all the papers have that this morning. And of course, it says Moghalu Ude assess political parties' manifestos. Finland condemns planned attack disruption of elections in Southeast. And of course, more of the headlines also says how Nigerian Airlines spend 300 billion naira annually for double insurance on aircraft. Okay, and let's see more of the stories yet. We have more coming from the front page of the This Day newspaper. This says Rector seeks federal government subvention waivers for Aviation College. And I guess we have to take about one more. Uganda reiterates importance of investors' education. And of course, that's the much we can take with the This Day newspaper this morning.
All right, we go on a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be back with the analysis. The Break of Dawn newspapers review, 32 FM 94.9. Stay tuned, we'll be back.
FM 94.9.
When something correct go show, we go see and well. Color correct. Now we time to choose. Waiting correct for Naija. Color correct. Light when no get head, the correct. Nah, he no correct. All the promise and fail, the correct. Nah. For the correct. Correct for the people. With BRP party with the golden key. Correct for the people.
Vote the correct team of Kola Abiola and Haro Zago for president and vice president. PRP victory! It's time to enjoy fast and reliable internet connection for less.
It's time to go big in the INT'L Home Broadband All-Time Mega Offer.
It's time to take advantage in the INT'L Home Broadband All-Time Mega Offer. Get a MiFi with up to 125 gigabyte bonus data for just 5,000 naira, or a router with up to 240 gigabyte bonus data for just 10,000 naira. Visit any INT'L shop or www.airtel.com.ng/HBB now.
INT'L, the smartphone network.
Showmax and Jara Air, it's given. You can get 2 months for the price of one. Oh, whoa, it's given. It's given Real Housewife and Flossom Marathon with that bling bling and shakara.
Money is never in short supply.
It's given Big Brother Titanships, passports, and binge watching vibes. It's given what's supposed to be given and overdose. Oh yeah, subscribe now to get 2 months from 1,200 naira for a limited time only on Showmax. It's given Showmax. Sign up at showmax.com.
Kò síṣẹ́ kò sówó, ebi ń pa mí, àìsí ìdáàbòbò, ìjìyà ojúmọ́, náírà kí ló dé? Àsìkò làpájà Nàìjíríà dé. Bóyá PDP, òkùnkùn dí mọ́lẹ̀, gàrí jẹ gàrí mu, PDP, iṣẹ́ rẹpẹtẹ, PDP, PDP.
ìkéde yìí wá láti ọ̀dọ̀ PDP Presidential Campaign Council.
Bros, I wan tell you about this ogbonge satellite internet. This one na connection with K. Wetin be that one? Na connect dem call am. Correct internet connection with fiam speed. E dey everywhere for Naija. Abeg make we try am now.
Yes o, na from states we dey reach you.
Bam! On top that one, na high speed for home or for office. Yeah! Na connect with K. Fixed satellite internet for Nigeria. We get up to 100 Mbps plus unlimited data. We no dey finish. More tori dey on connect.com. We gum body with cool link.
32 FM 94.9.
Welcome back. You're still on to 32 FM 94.9, and as a Break It Dawn Papers review this morning, we have Prof already with us in the studio, Professor Ojedogun. It's great to have you back here, sir.
Yes,
good morning.
Top of the day, of course.
Good morning.
All right, let me start off with this Naira redesign, and it's actually getting quite interesting, given the fact that the likes of Ganduje and, of course, El-Rufai coming out very strongly. These are people who supported the ambition of President Muhammadu Buhari come 2015 then, and of course 2019, and all of a sudden we saw this happening. You know, it's quite shocking. Mm-hmm. And now for an El-Rufai to say that whatever the president has come up with in terms of saying that only old 200 Naira note will be spent, that his state, as far as he's concerned, will abide by what the Supreme Court has said, the order of the Supreme Court, that the old notes, the 500 Naira, 1,000 Naira, and 200 Naira are still legal tender in Nigeria, and they will go ahead. And also Ganduje is saying that Buhari is out to truncate democracy. How do we handle this catastrophe?
Well, it's surprising, of course, but not surprising also, because these political characters have been fiercely in support of the candidacy of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. So, of course, it's predicted that anything that they feel goes against their candidate, because do not be deceived in any way. There is no pretension that this is actually because it's against the masses, but really because they feel it's against their political fortunes. They've more than said it, that they feel this is an attempt to truncate, this political transition and to bring in an interim military, interim ING as they call it. But everybody knows that they simply feel that this policy goes against their own political interest. You'd have thought that because they belong to the same political party, they would have been on the same page. But it's becoming quite apparent that within the APC, they are split. And there's a split, and some of it for good reason. Some of them are saying that the Supreme Court granted an injunction, an ex parte injunction, and that on the 15th of February, by not removing that ex parte injunction, that the Supreme Court extended it at least up to the 22nd. And if therefore the Supreme Court has granted an injunction, then the federal government is duty bound to follow the law. And some would argue, but that the CBN that implements the policy, the CBN that has the power under Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act 2007, you understand, were not joined as a party. And some would argue that even though they were not joined as a party, even though they are independent and autonomous, they are an agent of the federal government. Therefore, whatever binds the federal government should bind them. And they will quote a plethora of cases. And some would argue that the CBN is not in a typical principal agency relationship because it has clear functions under this. So I think there are two schools of thought. Some feel that the federal government is going against the rule of law. That's the El-Rufai camp. That's the Ganduje camp. And the others are saying no, they're not going against the law. They are bringing some sanity to the electoral process from that point of view. But at the end of the day, what matters is how it affects the people. Are the people faring better as a result of this policy? Are the people able to pay for basic commodities, transport, vegetables, and all those sort of things? And I think if at the end of the day people continue to suffer, then the policy, no matter how well it is dressed up, you understand, is problematic, and the federal government has to do something to be able to address it. But what is quite clear is that there's confusion as we speak within the camps of the APC.
Okay, so I wanted to start with this. So the president addressed the nation yesterday.
Yes.
Did you, as a person, as a Nigerian, feel a sense of relief from the broadcast? Did you feel good as a Nigerian about that broadcast?
Well, I never feel good about any broadcast Buhari makes. Not because there's no substance, but because, of course, the tone sometimes is toneless most of the time from that point of view. But I think I took something out of that broadcast, and many took something out, that at least the 200 Naira notes, you understand, will be available. And that's the predominant note that people spend, the masses spend. The masses tend to spend 200s, the elite tends to spend 500 and 1,000. So I think for the masses, for me, you understand, it was good, something good. But at the end of the day, the federal government, in putting itself out there, the question is, are they going against the rule of law? Are they violating a Supreme Court decision? If it was the central bank that made that announcement, I might have been more comfortable to say, well, central bank was not a party, and therefore it doesn't really concern them that much. But with the federal government being the forefront, you must ask the question, from that point of view. There are some people who will take the consolation and say, oh, well, it's in the interest of Nigerians that the money backs be curtailed. But the problem with the rule of law is that if you allow and excuse the breach of the rule of law once, then when it matters, you understand, you will have no locus to be able to criticize that breach, because you've said, well, rule of law sometimes could be breached in certain circumstances. The Supreme Court, you may not be happy with the Supreme Court, but even when they make a decision that you're unhappy with, because of the rule of law, because we don't want arbitrariness or capriciousness, we must find a way to obey decisions of the Supreme Court.
All right, we keep talking about prioritizing education in Nigeria. And now NECO is coming out to say about 7 states are still owing it 2 billion naira. Now, I want to know if NECO is just an entity that is isolated from every other entities in the system, the educational system in Nigeria. And secondly, what is this thing about NECO making money for the federal government? Because at a point in time we also had JAMB, and sometimes you have to pay for what you're not supposed to pay for, the scratch card and the rest of it, going through all those rigors. Now we have this coming from NECO.
Simply don't have the money. They rather spend money on other things rather than on getting forms. And of course it's disenfranchised, and they should be able to pay salaries from that point of view. If NECO is doing Is it because the amount NECO is charging is too much? Or is it because the states don't simply have money? What exactly is going on? I know some people will argue, I'm sorry we are going to come to this currency. Some people are saying that the reason why sometimes states do not provide enough for the people is that they sometimes store up this money so that when they get to elections, they spend it, you understand, buying votes, rather than investing it in such like education. Have you seen the amount of money that people have been taking to central bank? We are talking about millions and multi-millions, you understand? We're not talking about shishi money. And you would ask that question, if all this money was put into some local infrastructure or education, and then maybe they would have been...
It's because it seems to be the style of the movement. It's been like making another allegation saying that some politicians, some people around Boris Kabbalah trying concocting a military takeover or something like that. Do you think we should take him seriously?
Well, those are very serious allegations, and I hope that this DSS investigates this, because nobody can truncate our democracy. But let me just say, another argument that the federal government has brought up, which Elrufai has alluded to, is that the federal government claims to have destroyed all the 1,000 and the 500 naira note. That there's confrontation with our government. The responsibility for currency or for legal tender lies with the federal government. It doesn't lie with the state government. Even if the federal government is going against, according to the governors, against the injunction, I don't think it'd be owed on the state government, because they cannot enforce it. They cannot enforce the legality or otherwise of the 500 or 1,000. Who controls the police? The police is controlled by the federal government, and so in terms of enforcement, the states are nowhere. So they can make those statements, but in reality, they're just going to bring more suffering to the people. I think they should allow people to face the reality of the fact that the federal government has made some decisions, rightly or wrongly. Because at the end of the day, if I keep on taking old naira and I go to the supermarket and I go to the market and place and I cannot spend it, Elrufai, someone or Makinde is not going to come to my aid.
Okay, let's talk about the CBN, because I said we're going to come back to that. Now, just yesterday in Dubai, right here, the crowd at the CBN building was thick. And it leaves the question, is the CBN ready for a more direct contact with the people? I say this because the traditional banks were involved in this exchange before now. And now the CBN has said, generate a code, fill out some forms, keeping in mind that they once mentioned that they were not prepared for how the Naira redesign policy played out. Do you think the CBN is prepared at this time? And do they have the adequate infrastructure to contain the amount of Nigerians who will be trooping into their offices to deposit their old notes across the country?
First and foremost, I was under the impression that most Nigerians, I don't have old Naira notes. I don't know whether you have, and I don't know. My impression is that most average Nigerians, the masses, don't even have that money on them. The people that have this money on them are people in many instances, not all instances, let's be very careful, where it's been illicit, sometimes it's been laundered, and some will say, you understand, politicians of some sort. CBN is overwhelmed because I don't think CBN actually imagined that there was so much of this money. I mean, they know what the money is out there, but they didn't imagine that this money was spread out among so many of these people. So I'm not sure that CBN is adequately prepared. If they were adequately prepared, then you'll not be finding the crowd you're having. And secondly, I think the CBN has been caught off guard because you've been extending this deadline, so people have been putting it off. And Nigerians, I do it a lot, but a lot of Nigerians like to put things off a lot, from that point of view. So I think what is now happening is that people now don't want to lose this money. And of course, you bring the money in, particularly if it's legitimate. The illegitimate ones are finding it very difficult because you have to find people to do it for you, from that point of view. And the CBN is trying to make it difficult for illicit money because they want the person who actually owns the money to fill the form, to put their details, BVN, NIN, so that they can trace it. So I think it's making it difficult for those who own the money, illicit money. But have you noticed one thing? That kidnapping has actually gone down for now.
Yes, of course. Sure.
All right. Let's also look at the census. 17 years after, Nigeria is actually looking at conducting another census, National Population Commission, and that should be in April. Now, we're talking about a major crisis in Nigeria. We've not been able to address that. Now, of what extent is this population census itself? Is it for adequate sharing or equity when you talk about resources to go around? What exactly does the government want to get with this April 2023 census itself?
First and foremost, let's note that the government says they're going to spend about $1 billion. I stand to be corrected there. I don't know whether you've ever experienced one. I experienced a census when I came back from England in 1973. I experienced a census. We all got something, red ink or whatever. They came to our house, they counted us and did all sorts of things. The reality is that Nigeria has never really had a proper census because those figures were cancelled. The purpose of a census is for economic development, for infrastructure, to be able to plan ahead. And most developed countries have census so that they know the total number of population. In Nigeria, it's been by permutation, by conjecture, you understand, and there are parts of the country where the census, the planning of the population is not based on real census, but based on permutations that have come since the 1950s. The census are what is used to determine the number of local governments. Census are what are used to determine, a number of revenue allocation and a number of things and so on and so forth. So it's important. But can we afford a census at this time? I'm not sure that we can. Are there other ways in which we can do a census or carry it out? And I'm sure there are other ways. I think we should explore those other means rather than the actual census itself of actually counting people, since we're just going to have completed an election and we may not have the resources. But a census is important because we actually need to know how many people are in Nigeria.
Can we ever conduct a credible census in Nigeria?
Until it's depoliticized. It's very politicized. If we I was member of the census board, an employee in Great Britain, and it was highly depoliticized, whatever the word is. Sorry, I get it tongue-tied. And so it needs to be localized. Politics needs to be taken out of it, you understand? And it needs to be something we do as part of our everyday existence. We can actually count ourselves, but we shouldn't make it centralized and very elaborate.
All right, this headline says Naira crisis, banks lose 5 billion naira to protesters. The Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions, an umbrella body of banking sector workers, disclosed that banks lost 5 billion naira following attacks on assets by protesters. He's alleged that they've attacked the bank buildings. Bank buildings were burnt, automated teller machines destroyed, and all of that. It's been a tough season for banks all across Nigeria. They felt the brunt of the people, and people are angry because, it's been believed that some banks have intentionally been hoarding the money that should be around for the people. But we must also encourage people to desist from destroying lives and property. Prof.
We don't support violence in any shape or any form. But what you must understand is that people have lost much more than the bankers are claiming to have lost. You know, when this Naira redesign policy first came out, do you know the first place people found this money? Do you know the first place I found this new money? I didn't find it in the market. I didn't find it in the banks. I didn't find it, you understand, in exchange with people. I found it at a party, you understand. Crisp notes, brand new notes in bundles, from that point of view. So if people are accusing the bankers, then you know that there's a reason, you understand. Having said that, not all bankers, you understand, are guilty of this. So I think people have visited violence upon them, which is wrong, of course, from that point of view. So I think there has to be some introspection from the bankers themselves. I think they need to look at what exactly they've done wrong, and if there's a cozy relationship between them and politicians and all kinds of dubious characters, then that needs to be revisited.
Are we not the ones who are going to suffer this? For instance, sometimes you get charges. You get charges to your account, and then how is the next couple of months going to be? Are we going to start getting charges to our accounts so that some ATMs can be rebuilt?
It is possible, but then again, people are suffering already, and when you have nowhere to go, you understand, that's what people think. I have nowhere to go, so what's the point? And these are people that have lost stake in society. They have no stake in society, and so they go on a rampage. It is wrong. They should be apprehended. They should be arrested. But of course, the banks must do that which is right. If CBN has rooted some money down there, then don't let the money back corner it. Let it go around equitably. Be sensible about it. Let the ATM machines work. Some of them will argue, we don't have any money, that's why we're not routing it through. But we've seen instances where banks have eaten some money and those monies have not gone to the ATMs. So there must be a way in which this money can get to the people. If it gets to the people more, especially with the 200 notes that have come into being, then maybe the anger of the people will be assuaged.
Reportedly hidden some money, or allegedly hidden some money.
We saw DSS arrest some people. You understand? We're not saying every bank does it, but we are saying that there's evidence. They've not been charged to court, so it's an allegation. But we've seen some videos, and that's what people have seen. So the banks need to debunk it, and the only way the banks can debunk it, you understand, is possible. They can't open their vaults, obviously, but at the same time, they need, if they have this money with them, they need to find a way to get it to the people. But I think the government, you understand, is also only responsible for the wrong implementation or for the dodgy implementation of a policy which could have been a fantastic policy.
Quickly, Prof, before we go on this break, I wanted you to quickly look at the job loss, because of course when you have things like this, would we say the government is insensitive here? Because by the time you look at the economic crisis here, obviously a number of people will lost their jobs. Now, how do we marry this with the realities of what we have on ground already?
Oh, the CBN certainly has been insensitive in its implementation. And of course, the federal government has a role to play in that. And I think what the federal government needs to do now is to find some kind of palliatives for the small businesses, particularly, who are losing jobs on a daily basis, the people who are suffering. A lot of people in this country depend on the patronage and money that comes from people, 200s, and that sort of thing. And they're not getting that money again. And of course, as a result of that, they've lost their income, not just jobs. Some of people are not paid enough. And so they rely on the livelihood. So they rely on this money that trickles down. So the government needs to intervene in such sort of way, and the government must bear responsibility for those who have lost jobs. I see a recession coming. I hope it doesn't come, because the economy is contracting because there's no money to expand this economy.
Do you think that the current situation of cash scarcity will fester into massive vote buying the federal government has been trying to avoid? Because if I can't access cash and then someone comes to say, you know what, take this, new notes, crisp, do you think it's going to fester?
No, it's not going to fester because there's not enough money to go around. Remember that 3 trillion was supposed to be 3.1 trillion. Now, the bank has only been able to produce about 400 billion or 500 billion, and a lot of the old Naira notes are not being accepted. They are not going to be crisp anymore. So the new ones, which are supposed to be crisp, they are not really going to get to the hands of the people. People are finding it difficult. So I think if the government wants to stop vote buying, they may have succeeded. But if and when they allow the old Naira notes to come flood into the market, we might see a resumption of the vote buying that we so earnestly disagree with.
All right, we have to pay some bills right about now, and because it's still 32 FM 94.9, and there's the paper's review on the break it on. We'll take this break. We'll be back shortly.
32 FM 94.9.
When something correct go show, we go see and well. Color correct. Now we time to choose. Waiting correct for Naija. Color correct. Light when no get head, the correct. Nah, he no correct. All the promise and fail, the correct. Nah, he no correct. Stable power supply. Correct. PRP and color. Correct. Color. Correct for the people. Now here we need make Naija for the correct. Color. Correct for the people. With PRP party with the golden key. Color correct for the people.
Vote the correct team of Kola Abiola and Harozago for president and vice president.
PRP victory!
Why always Wura? Why does her quest to save her gold leave us hungry and broken?
Don't miss the new drama series, Wura, where everything is fair game. Sign up now at showmax.com.
You don't take away with the para. Time don't come, make we grab up. Good job, good food and transport. Steady like that, let's go jackpot. Come online, fall in line. We can do this together. You need me, I need you. We must vote for the better. Many people don't try. I promise I'll fail. This time not for the better. I sure I do not demand. It go better, make it better for you and me. My people, time don't come to follow Sabiro. I sure I do not demand for better tomorrow. Oh, yeah, for better tomorrow. Lights you go day, better get them away. Poverty go fade, better get them throw away. Security, you go day, better get.
Make we move Nigeria forward together with renewed hope. Vote Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima for president and vice president. Vote APC.
APC Progress.
32 FM 94.9.
Welcome back. You're still on to the papers review on Breakdown 32 FM 94.9. I am Gbolabo, famous school.
And the phone lines for you to call 0705 500949 and 0809 70949. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Benga Mario, calling from Apata.
All right, please go on.
Yeah, I think what Nasir is doing and Gandhi, what they are doing, I think they are just, let me call them saboteurs, because the thing is not favoring them. They want to induce people through vote buying, and that is, Nigeria has gone past that, and that is what Muhammadu Buhari is trying to do. They wanted to give to buy the other people with the money. I think they couldn't access the 1,500 notes. Thereby, they are causing mix up all across the country. So I think what Buhari is doing now is dawning on me due to his speech yesterday that he's trying to ensure that there is no vote buying. He's trying to ensure that vote of people count. And I think the president has done the right thing. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. 0705 500949 and 0809 70949.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. It's Shola from Wolf.
All right.
Do you know the president's broadcast yesterday wasn't everything? Because people were even accepting 1,500 before yesterday. But yesterday, people are now rejecting it. And where is that 200 naira note? Yeah, where are they? Banks are closed. Thank you.
All right. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Gbolabo from Malaka Shagoro.
All right, please go on.
I just want to comment on the statement related to Bajajadila that President Muhammadu Buhari asked the guys for Supreme Court. From book of things, President Muhammadu Buhari, he has prophesied the National Assembly, he won. That's why the way he went to pocket the Supreme Court. What I want now is that I want the chief legal officer of the Federation, the number one man, Chief Ademuwagun, to talk on this issue. Because if Supreme Court does not take a serious action on this, Mr. President, this is Mr. President as a president. Where the other ruler is the trample on the Supreme Court. On the issue of L5, he said that his people in Kaduna State should continue to send the old naira notes. It means that what two rulers in the state, CBN is doing soon, Kaduna government is doing soon. I don't know where we are headed to. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you very much.
Let's quickly go to Facebook and take some comment. Omoade Adekunle said the flout of Buhari regime as regards the court order and Naira policy is not surprising because the federal government does not obey the court order. The case of El Zaki, Nnamdi Kanu, Zambo Dasuki and other cases like that ring a bell. Airways, the Oyo State governor has addressed the people of Oyo State to channel their anger to voting because violence cannot solve this issue. May God help us. All right, let's see if we could take more. Balkis Onodiran says, kudos to Makinde for giving Asiwaju a warm reception. Nigerian politics are assuming a new intriguing dimension, and I intend to watch this new direction all the way to the end. All right, I guess we have more calls here.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
This is John Olarola from Nigeria. On the statement credited to Dajabi Amina, he sought the Mr. President of going against the Constitution and against the Supreme Court. As far as I'm concerned, I think Dajabi Amina to me actually in my right because he knows law. But what is Dajabi Amina? When Mr. President refused to release El Saki at that time, where is Dajabi Amina? Even the Nnamdi Kanu of this recent one. There are so many times that Mr. President has gone against the verdict of the law and the constitution rather. And Dajabi Amina has never come out to fight Mr. President. But on this one only, because it confines him. So I'm not saying that Dajabi Amina is not right, and I'm not saying Mr. President is also right. Because if yes, it is speech, make everything worse according to one caller. Yes, but this is what we are saying is that Dajabi Amina knows the right thing. If the Speaker of the House, let him go ahead and do the right thing. As far as Mr. President is truly defaulted, he goes against the Convention of the Land. So let him do his job now. The Speaker, let him do the right thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. This comment from Okejiran Babatunde says, congratulations to the Petroleum Minister for addressing the nation. The indication is simple. The administration doesn't respect court pronouncement. This Buhari administration will be remembered for bringing hardship on Nigerians. Buhari Deem is, okay, I don't think I would be able to take that. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ayo from Badam.
Please go on.
Please, I want to ask Prof. In 2015 and 2019, when Buhari went to start his office, is there no vote buying? I want to ask him.
What's the question?
He said 2015 and 2019.
Of course it was. Of course it's a hypocrisy. But that's the nature of the political party that we have in power. I think it's a political party problem, and I think, it's also a Nigerian problem.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, morning, Prof. Good morning. I'm calling from Ibadan. I think the case of the president is the case of trying to kill a hand with a sledgehammer. It's a big of hypocrisy, like the Prof said, saying that you want to prevent people from vote buying and causing untold hardship on the entire country. It is not fair, it is wrong, and I think the average Nigerian should note this in future, in this present election and future elections. We should start voting for people and stop voting for parties. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's take more comments on Facebook and
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, this is Miriam. I'm calling from Adenike.
All right.
Yeah, I would like to react on the redesigning of some units. It's a pity that we now have black markets for the redesign units. And at this rate, can we still say that proper implementation was taken by the state government officials and the central government before coming up with such policy. See, it's a pity that the naira scarcity keeps getting worse on the daily basis, and it is taking a toll on Nigerians. So I want to help the CBN governor and the central government to put more cash at the commercial banks so that people will have free access to it. That's my take. Good morning.
All right, thank you very much. So in case you want to call in, is 0705 5949 and 0809 7949.
All right, we take this from Raji Hafiz Abiola. Raja says, good morning, Adenike, Gbolabo. Honestly, I don't see the design of the new Naira note as measure of stopping vote buying in Nigeria politics. Instead, the Nigerian government would have worked on the salary of political functionary. The politics is much more attractive in Nigeria. Make it less attractive that's the only way to reduce vote buying in Nigeria politics. God bless Nigeria.
Adedeji Ayub Adenike says Buhari, as a Minister of Petroleum, refused to address the fuel scarcity but only Naira issue. I wish we started this policy just after 2015 election, before 2019 election. It would have been easier now, but we pumped more money into the system through trader money and other cash transfers, or was it because it would have affected Buhari re-election? Hypocrisy everywhere. God will heal our land. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Please go on.
Am I on to FM?
Yes, you are. Please make your point.
Oh, okay. I want to contribute to the discussion. Like Prof said, President Muhammadu Buhari is just being hypocritical. And if this policy is actually targeted towards stopping vote buying in Nigeria, then Muhammadu Buhari is just wasting his time. Is it that politicians don't have access to commercial banks? Who are the people on the board of all these commercial banks? Are they saying that they have a merit system that employs people into Central Bank of Nigeria? Are they saying all these major aspirants don't have key people inside Central Bank of Nigeria? It automatically shows that they have access to this money. Even let them print another money, they have access to it. I think Muhammadu Buhari is up to something. Thank you very much. Wale is money.
All right. Thank you. And I think this is the last call pick. It's time to go. Hello. Good morning.
Morning, Gbolabo. Prof.
Good morning.
Prof, I'm one of those that I always ask the president to speak to us. At least he's talking to us now. I know his intent. I don't know about others. And I think I have an idea of where he's heading and what he's up to. That is actually why we clamor for it. But in terms of the money, some of us actually knew that the 1,000 thing might not really work, that he might not agree. But at least we now have an idea. We know what we think the president is doing or his intentions. So we should all prepare and know how to curb one of them if it is possible in our own path. Good morning. This is okay.
Thank you very much. Prof, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, I think the federal government must ease the suffering of the people. This 200 naira that they said is now the currency, legitimate. Let it get into the hands of the people. Let's spend, and let's have some succor from the suffering of the past few weeks.
All right. That's the much we can take on the program this morning. We must say a big thank you to Professor Ojedokun for your time on the program, and to all our listeners out there and callers, and of those also who sent their messages on Facebook. It's 32 FM 94.9. We're signing out. My name is Gbolabo. Famous call.